Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, the only podcast to delve into the occasionally blue depths of the Deep Blue Sea franchise, one Deeply chapter at a time. That's been completed, and since then, my regular co-host Mark is on podcasting leave, enjoying life as a new father. Something you don't need to worry about ever happening to me. That's fine. I will just keep podcasting forever. And in the meantime, I'm looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films until he comes back. So, this week we are talking about Godzilla vs. Biollante. What is Godzilla vs. Biollante? Well, less Deep Blue Sea adjacent than I thought it might be when it was suggested by our guest. This is released in 1989. It is one of the Japanese Godzilla films. I believe it is the 17th Godzilla film, but the second in the Heisei era, a direct sequel to 1984's The Return of Godzilla, which I haven't seen. This is the only Godzilla film I've seen prior to Roland Emmerich's masterpiece in 1990, whatever year that came out.
98.
1998, thank you. So in Godzilla vs. Biollante, I believe in a regular Godzilla film, you would see Godzilla defending the Earth or something from a giant animal or a dragon or some such. But here, he's not defending the Earth from a giant animal. He's fighting an enormous evolving plant imbued with his own DNA and the spirit of a scientist's dead daughter. Meanwhile, three separate factions are all fighting for regenerative research based on Godzilla cells, and the aforementioned brief scientist has developed bacteria that destroys nuclear material in order to defeat Godzilla. Oh, and there's a psychic girl, and in fact a whole school of psychic kids. We'll get to that. So this is fairly untested ground for me, looking at an older Godzilla film. But it's not for our guest, because when it was told to him, like, hey, we're doing some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films, anything you want to talk about, just without even thinking, the reply was like, Godzilla vs. Biollante. And that's why we're here today. So joining us again, many times in it, our most frequent guest from Rehack Radio and Fresh This Sunday is Nick Rehack. Nick, welcome back.
Hey, thank you, Jay. Thank you for having me begrudgingly.
Not at all. It's not begrudging at all. I just was, when you suggested Godzilla vs. Biollante, I assumed, and this is entirely my fault, that Godzilla would be fighting either entirely underwater or some kind of giant shark creature. Just how it tied in a bit more with Deep Blue Sea, not just Godzilla is in the water sometimes.
Yep, and he's fighting in the water. Gotcha.
So before we get into this film specifically, what is it about the Godzilla franchise or character or the whole saga? What is it that draws you to these films?
It all starts as just a young child growing up, and we had all the VHS box sets. So I would be in the living room playing with Legos, and on the TV we would just have all these different Godzilla films going on, and it was just so different from all the Disney and animated stuff that I would watch. Like my brother, he's 2 to 3 years younger than me, depending on the time of the year, and do you like that? And he's 3 years younger.
Okay, so that's a figure that doesn't change.
3 years younger, and so he's a little bit young. He would want animated movies and things like that, and I was getting to be just on that cusp, and I'm like, no, I want something different, and this was just wholly different from what it was before. It was that or westerns with my father. And I didn't always want to watch movies with his because his were long and boring at the time. So this, I'm like, here we go. There's monsters fighting, whatever, and I can play with my Legos while going on. So as a kid, I'm ignoring the people talking. But when Godzilla shows up, I put the Legos down. I watch Godzilla. Then when he's done, I go back to the Legos. But as I've returned to Godzilla more and more, I can find more from the films and greater appreciation. And now that I have seen, totally varying different types of films, I can kind of see like, oh, maybe in a weird way, this was an inspiration for that. Or oh, I like how this camera works. I wish they would have done that in like this movie over here or done it in this way. Or, oh, how come we don't see more of that? Stuff like that.
Cool. And then when your brain racked the Godzilla franchise for the most Deep Blue Sea adjacent, why did you settle on Biollante?
I started on Biollante because the first battle does take place in a water source,
Yeah.
but a lot of it has to still blue, still sea.
Yeah,
Just
it counts. We talked about Shark Night. That's all in a lake. So.
Yeah, just a landlocked sea. That's all it is.
Yes. It's just a sea with a border. That's fine.
There's a lot more of that, and Godzilla doesn't really have any water-based battles pre what's going on now with like the Legendary series, where obviously with Godzilla vs. King Kong, he's fighting him on a ship and literally fights him underwater at times. This was one of those first examples where that was happening, so it was really cool to see that. And also, I absolutely love this movie, and nobody talks about it enough, so I'm like, here we go, 1-2 punch. I threw it in there.
Well, I did some kind of background research before the show, and it seems like this film has its fans amongst the Godzilla and the kaiju community. There's a few other podcasts out there that seem to be a fan of this film, or that like it enough but agree that it's not discussed often. But then there are other people who think it's terrible because it kind of detracts from the standard Godzilla format a little bit, where it's just... I'm not even sure if what I understand as a standard Godzilla format is true, where like a monster appears, Godzilla comes, fights it, goes back to the sea. Is that kind of what normally is the case, or am I completely wrong?
So typically it's monster appears, Godzilla fights the monster, Godzilla either barely escapes or just barely defeats the monster. Monster comes back stronger, so Godzilla has to really step up and come and fight him back. This happens very similar to this one, but with this one, obviously Godzilla just keeps defeating a different type, but after he fights such a creature like this, and I'm probably jumping ahead, so I apologize. After he defeats such a creature like this, he's used up that energy, right? And Godzilla thrives off of nuclear and atomic energy. So now we actually see him having to seek out and look for that energy and absorb that power. So he's going to these coastal cities where there are nuclear reactors to kind of draw that energy so he can go and survive, and he can go and fight the next person. So to actually take the time and see how that works here, especially from a biotechnology standpoint, I always thought was really cool. Because, yeah, it's fun to just watch him beat the hell out of some people, but taking that sidestep and like kind of showing a little more how it works, it's like, okay, this is actually pretty neat. And it allows us to look at Godzilla in different ways in other mediums too moving forward. Like you have the most recent Zero Point Godzilla anime series, where you have Shin Godzilla, just different ways to look at the creature and just improve on that story and not just kind of, beat that dead horse.
Fair enough. Okay, so do they often have these other kind of companies vying for Godzilla cells, or like there's an assassin guy in this film who has the sunglasses and the long trench coat, who just kind of keeps showing up and shooting people. Is that like a regular kind of, obviously not that same character, but somebody like that, or just
no, not at all. This is
a lot
all
of like human action sequences as well.
No, this is all like very particular to this film. Godzilla Final Wars, there's a lot more human interaction and human fight sequences. I was on, God, I feel terrible for not remembering, Asian Cinema Fan podcast, Asian Cinema Club fan. What?
Asian Cinema Fan Club, I think is what
yeah.
it is. With actually, that one of the hosts of that one is Elwood Jones, and he is the one who got me in touch with somewhere I could watch this film. So thank you to Elwood, friend of the show. He was on in season 1. And
apologies to me for butchering the hell out of that name just now. But maybe you can edit it to make it sound good. You won't, though. He and Stephen Wright, had me on, and we discussed Godzilla Final Wars. And there was a lot more human fighting, very Matrix-style fighting in that film, which I found to be very bizarre, but we had a lot of fun discussing it anyway. No, typically it's the human drama in the background is always something political-based or something kind of conspiracy theory-esque. And it's always the people kind of reacting to what just happened. Like, why did Godzilla attack us? Where's he going to go next? How can we stop him? Meanwhile, Godzilla is just doing two things. He's looking for that energy in order to survive, and sometimes he has to go through a city and destroy it to get to it, or someone's testing him. Someone's like, I'm the biggest and baddest, and Godzilla's like, yeah, no, you're not. And he comes in, shakes his tail around, hits him with a little fire breath, and off he goes.
Yeah, I felt really sorry for Godzilla in this film, because he's only... at the start of the film, he gets trapped in a volcano, which I believe is what happens at the end of the previous film.
Correct.
and then he's in there. And then it's just through humans dicking about and being twats to each other. Like one faction's like, "Well, give us some money, or we'll set off these bombs, and we'll wake Godzilla up." And it doesn't happen in time, so they set off the bombs and wake Godzilla up. And then he's just annoyed, because they woke him up. He was pretty fine in that volcano. And then he's
doing his thing, and you can even see it in his eyes too.
Yeah.
Very expressive for, I mean, not to be reductive, but essentially a rubber suit. Very expressive eyes.
Yeah, I just felt bad for the guy. He was perfectly fine having a nap. Now they woke him up and they're going to try and kill him, and it's just their fault for waking him up. Anyway, so
like the hand that feeds you, you know.
Yeah. So we don't actually, other than that brief recap of the end of the previous film, we don't start with Godzilla action, because, as I say, Godzilla is dormant. He's in a volcano. We start with like a heist of these guys trying to steal a Godzilla cell. A Godzilla cell in this case is the size of a small plate. It turns out it's huge, and it's like spongy. Looks horrible. And they're kind of found. They're kind of seen, and they get chased, and we get this chase sequence between, I think, some American terrorists and some Japanese guards, and then the aforementioned third faction, an actor called Manjo Bedi, who's played the character SSS9, SSS9. So not a proper name, just, I think that's obviously some kind of 007 kind of code name. But
super secret spy.
Yeah, exactly, secret spy number 9, yeah. Yeah. So he is maybe my favourite part of the film. Which I should say, going in, I did like this film. I feel predisposed to dislike Godzilla films. I don't know what it is. But I've always found that every Godzilla film, to me, is worse than every King Kong film that I've seen.
How dare you.
So the most recent Godzilla vs. Kong, in my ranking, is literally between the Godzilla and the Kong films. All the Godzilla films, then Godzilla vs. Kong, then all the King Kong films. That's just how it works out. I think that's on me. I don't know what it is. I'm a Kong guy. I really love Kong.
I mean, to each their own.
And we've talked about the Gareth Edwards Godzilla film before on Lambcast. I didn't like it. I liked Godzilla, King of the Monsters even worse. Yeah, I fell asleep in that film every time I try and watch it. I fall asleep. I've still yet to see a human character's death because I fall asleep in it every time. So I've just stopped trying this. But anyway, so we have this SSS9, super secret spy 9, is just sunglasses at night, long trench coat, handy with a quip. Quips are often terrible, but he takes out these the American American thieves like hide in like a subway area and pop up to take out some guys. It's a fun firefight. But then SSS9 shows up and takes them out. And once he's killed them all, did you happen to catch his line that he shouts at them?
He's something kiss.
Kiss you guys.
That's what it is. Kiss you guys.
After he's killed these people.
It's fantastic.
This is what I enjoyed about this film. It takes turns I was not expecting it to take. But then I wasn't sure what I was expecting other than Godzilla fights a monster at some point. So anything like the psychic girl I mentioned, what the hell is that? I mean, it's just this is all nonsense, but I had fun. The 70s cop movie score over this opening scene. Like, I loved it.
Isn't that nice how they put the little funk in there with the score?
Yeah. So SSS9, Super Secret Spy 9, takes the cells and then takes them back to wherever he's going. I think he works for Seradia Oil, or Seradia Oil is one of the factions in this. Then there's some American guys. You can tell they're American because one of them has an American flag hat.
That's how you know.
Just in case you weren't aware. And then there's like an official Japanese science company that's trying to do the official research. Everyone else is trying to steal. They're working for the government. A lot happens in this film. I didn't quite follow all of it, but I